Hello everyone. In this session of biodiversity and the concepts of biodiversity, we are going to learn about the second part of it, that is conventions, especially the Earth Summit. There are many biodiversity related conventions, and these conventions work to implement actions at the national, regional and international level in order to reach shared goals of conservation and sustainable use. That is conservation and sustainable use of ecosystems. In meeting their objectives, the conventions have developed a number of complementary approaches: site, species, genetic resources, and or ecosystem-based approaches, and operational tools, examples, programs of work, trade permits and certificates, multilateral systems for access and benefit sharing, regional agreements, site listing, funds, etc. The first one is the Convention on Biological Diversity, or also called as CBD, known informally as Biodiversity Convention. It is a multilateral treaty. It has three main goals, including the conservation of biological diversity or biodiversity, the sustainable use of its components, and the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from genetic resources. In other words, its objective is to develop national strategies for the conservation and sustainable use of biological diversity. It is often seen as a key document regarding sustainable development. The convention was opened for signature at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro on 5th June 1992 and entered into force on 29 December 1993. The CBD has two supplementary agreements or protocols, that is Cartagena Protocol and Nagoya Protocol. The Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety to the Convention on Biological Diversity is an international treaty governing the movements of living modified organisms, LMOs, living modified organisms resulting from modern biotechnology from one country to another. It was adopted on 29 January 2000 as a supplementary agreement to the Convention of Biological Diversity and entered into force on 11th September 2003. The Nagoya Protocol is a supplementary agreement to the CBD. It provides a transparent legal framework for the effective implementation of one of the three objectives of CBD, that is the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of genetic resources. The Nagoya Protocol on ABS was adopted on 29th October 2010 in Nagoya, Japan, and entered into force on 12th October 2014, 90 days after the deposit of the 50th instrument of ratification. Its objective is a fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the utilization of genetic resources, thereby contributing to the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. Then the second convention is Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, CITES. This aims to ensure that international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants does not threaten their survival. Through its three appendices, the convention accords varying degrees of protection to more than 30,000 plant and animal species. We all know that there is a trade which goes on everywhere in the world about the skins of animals or tusks of elephants or maybe sandalwood. These are all the things which are exported to other countries, and the wild animals and plants are usually threatened because of this type of indiscriminate killing of these species. So this CITES aims to ensure that international trade in these specimens does not threaten their survival. Then, Convention on Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals. The CMS or the Bond Convention aims to conserve terrestrial, marine and avian migratory species throughout their range. We all know that some of these animals go to different places for maybe during the summer season to tide over unfavorable season, or for their reproductive needs, they go to a different areas. These species, migratory species, are protected through this CMS. Parties to the CMS work together to conserve migratory species and their habitats by providing strict protection for the most endangered migratory species by concluding regional multilateral agreements for the conservation and management of specific species or categories of species, and by undertaking cooperative research and conservation activities. Then next one is the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources and for Food and Agriculture. The objectives of this particular treaty are the conservation and sustainable use of plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, and the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of their use, in harmony with the Convention on Biological Diversity for Sustainable Agriculture and Food Security. The treaty covers all plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, while its multilateral system of access and benefit sharing covers a specific list of 64 crops and forages. The treaty also includes provisions on farmers' rights. Then, Convention on Wetlands, popularly known as Ramsar Convention. The Ramsar Convention provides the framework for national action and international cooperation for the conservation and wise use of wetlands and their resources. The convention covers all aspects of wetland conservation and wise use, recognizing wetlands as ecosystems that are extremely important for biodiversity conservation in general and for the well-being of human communities. So, Ramsar Convention or Convention on Wetlands both mean the same, and they try to see that wetlands are used wisely. Their resources are used wisely. Then World Heritage Convention, that is WHC. The primary mission of the WHC is to identify and conserve the world's cultural and natural heritage by drawing up a list of sites whose outstanding values should be preserved for all humanity, and to ensure their protection through a closer cooperation among nations. Then, why are we talking about World Heritage Convention here? Because in the previous video, we have already learned that there are some people even now dependent on the natural resources for their livelihood, like the tribal people who are directly dependent on the natural resources, or indigenous people who are very much living on the resources that is offered by the nature. So the cultures and the heritage of these people will help us to maintain these ecosystems in a proper manner. So this particular World Heritage Convention tries to get all these cultural and national heritage by drawing up a list of sites whose outstanding values should be preserved for all humanity. Then International Whaling Commission or IWC. The purpose of IWC is to provide for the proper conservation of whale stocks and thus make possible the orderly development of the whaling industry. Then International Plant Protection Convention, IPPC. The IPPC aims to protect world plant resources, including cultivated and wild plants, by preventing the introduction and spread of plant pests and promoting the appropriate measures for their control. The convention provides the mechanisms to develop the international standards for phytosanitary measures, ISPMS, and to help countries to implement the ISPMs and other obligations under the IPPC by facilitating the national capacity development, national reporting, and dispute settlement. So whenever you want to get some plant resource from any other country, you have to follow the regulations and the standards which are given by the IPPC. The Secretariat of the IPPC is hosted by the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, that is FAO. Then the Earth Summits. The Earth Summits are decennial meetings of world leaders organized since 1972 with the help of United Nations to help defining ways to stimulate sustainable development at the global level. The aim is to bring together the best individuals and organizations humanity can bring forward from all kinds of categories of life to identify and update what are humanity's most pressing challenges, to quantify them and identify solutions and develop a plan of action, not to run into a wall. So Earth Summits are basically the meetings of world leaders along with the United Nations to have sustainable development at the global level. This now is the list of Earth Summit that have been conducted till now. 1972, the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment, UNCHS in Stockholm. Then 1982, that is the Earth Summit in Nairobi, Kenya. It was held from 10th to 18th May 1982. But this was a period of Cold War, so it was not even mentioned as an official Earth Summit. It was a failure. In 1992, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, UNCED, in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Then in 2002, the World Summit on Sustainable Development, that is WSSD, in Johannesburg, South Africa. In 2009, United Nations Summit on Climate Change in Copenhagen, Denmark. Then in 2012, the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, UNCSD, or Rio Plus 20, also took place in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Then 2018, the 7th Digital Earth Summit 2018, DES 2018, also called as DES 2018, on Digital Earth for Sustainable Development in Africa, was held in El Jadida, Morocco, at the Faculty of Science, Chob Dokkali University, from April 17 to April 19, 2018. Then in 2019, the Santiago Climate Change Conference, featuring the 25th session of the Conference of the Parties, that is COP25, to the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change, that is UNFCCC, and meetings of UNFCCC subsidiary bodies convened from 2nd to 13th December of 2019. This was a logo for that particular summit convention, Save the Climate. The Copenhagen Climate Change Conference is a United Nations meeting where 192 countries will try to forge a successor or a new Kyoto Protocol, which expires in 2012. The convention will be held from December 7th until December 18th in the Danish capital, Copenhagen. The talks are the latest in an annual series of UN meetings that trace their origin to the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio, which aimed at coordinating international action against climate change. In Bali, all parties agreed on the Bali Action Plan, and with that came the working conditions for the negotiations up to COP15 in Copenhagen. More than 192 countries participated in this summit, and some of the main players include the US, which offered to curb emissions by 17% from 2005 levels by 2020. The White House said that Obama would lay out a longer-term plan for a 30% reduction of US emissions from 2005 levels by 2025, a 42% reduction by 2030, and an 83% cut by 2050. So they promised that by 2050, the US emissions would be cut by 83%. China said it will cut the intensity of carbon dioxide emissions per unit of gross domestic product in 2020 by 40 to 45% from 2005 levels. But environmental experts warned that China's plan does not commit it to reducing emissions and that they will in fact continue to increase, though at a slower rate. Then coming to India, it has consistently argued that they should not be obliged to set internationally binding targets for reducing greenhouse gases because richer nations have a far greater historical responsibility for the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The European Union, which is committed to cutting carbon dioxide emissions by 20% by 2020 and by up to 30% if other countries join in. So these are all the key players in the Copenhagen Climate Change Conference, where they said that these countries said that they will be cutting down their carbon dioxide emissions by up to maybe 30% or 20% by 2020 and 83% by 2050. This was said by the United States. What does this summit hope to achieve? Officials representing 192 countries at the Copenhagen Conference will try to agree on a treaty which will replace the Kyoto Protocol, as we have already learned, which expires in 2012. The summit hopes to achieve an agreement on providing adequate finance and money from developed countries to developing countries, setting an emission target for developed countries between 25 and 40%, reducing emissions from deforestation, especially in Southeast Asia. No climate deal at Copenhagen. Now, in mid-December, Asia readers all hopes the climate change summit in Copenhagen will forge a binding pact to combat global warming, saying talks on the issue will drag on into the new year. APEC dropped a proposal, including in earlier drafts, to slash their greenhouse gas emissions to half their 1990 levels by 2050. Instead, they backed a face-saving proposal from Danish Prime Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen, aimed at forging a political statement of intent at the December meeting. Complex negotiations towards a legally enforceable successor to Kyoto Protocol on climate change, which expires in 2012, would then continue to work out differences between rich nations and developing countries, including China. The UN's top climate official earlier admitted reaching a final global warming treaty will be impossible this year, but political ingredients of the deal must be settled at the conference. The Copenhagen meeting must agree on the political essentials that make a long-term response to climate change clear, possible, realistic, and well-defined, said Jordi Boer, the Secretary General of UN Climate Change Secretariat. The finer points of the treaty should be concluded within 1 year, he said, so that it is ready to take effect in 2012 when parts of Kyoto Protocol expire. However, not all hopes have been crushed yet. There is a chance that world leaders will come with a declaration, a joint statement which may include a number such as keeping the warming below 2 degrees. The Australian Conservation Foundation's Tony Moore told SBS. But we shouldn't be too excited about that, because unless there is an international agreement to make those numbers real, then all the words in the world will not account for much, he said. Thank you.